So thanks for joining us, folks. We're here again with Martin. This is part two, and he's going to be talking about industry performance. And it's a continuation on the first part that he did. So Martin, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Yeah, and looking forward to hearing more about the industry and some of the data you're going to present.
Absolutely. So we've seen that the situation over the last few months has been very different for different business owners, and as business owners are debating the question of is this the right time for me to retire? Some perhaps are thinking, you know what, this is it. I don't want to put up with any more changes, any more legislation, any more whatever it may be. Whereas other ones are saying, this is the best time that the need for my business has skyrocketed, and understanding which industries how they're performing through this helps. So I wanted to hear in this part to give a little bit of a background for everyone to see. Sometimes it's easy to say that wherever you are, you only see it from your point of view. Grass may be greener on the other side or the other way around. So I wanted to put some numbers to that for everyone to get a better understanding. So looking at the performance of different industries, we wanted to break it down and look at different sectors. However, COVID, it may create a recession, it may not. We'll see. Well, one could say that we are in a recession, whereas not all the indicators are telling us that exactly. What's, I think, more important is that we do appreciate the fact that where we came from was very strong. So recessions happen on a regular basis, and that we've seen in the first part of the presentation, every 7 years, roughly, we have a recession. And if that is something that we expect and we know it's a rhythm, it's a beat to the economy, then we could have been in a recession, and then COVID could have happened. That would have been a lot tougher to deal with. Economic, financial recession, like the financial crisis in 2008, and then an external, very separate health-related issue to deal with on top of that. So looking back at the last few years and a few decades, this is the rhythm that I was referring to. So right here, we're looking at unemployment. And in the year or 2019, unemployment was at 60-year lows in the US. It was at 40-year lows in Canada, and same for Europe. It was at its lows, and you can see that on the graph. So people having jobs for the general of the economy, not individuals participating in it. If we have that recession, we're actually better positioned to deal with it. We're stronger. So if you think of it as a medical term, if you have a strong immune system and you get a cold, or if you get some kind of an illness, you're going to have to get through that cold and deal with it. But a stronger immune system initially will help you do that. And looking at other economic indicators, some of the leading ones that tell us how people are feeling and thinking about their finances. Top left, lightweight vehicle sales. We've seen, from the lows of 2009, 2010, almost a doubling in sales, and they've been staying steady for the last 5 years. People buying cars means that, I have money to buy a brand new car. Then when we look at industrial production, back in 2016, 2017, we did see a little bit of a dip, but generally, if you go to 2010 until now, you're seeing the expansion, the growth that happened. Housing starts, and especially in Canada, we have been lucky, and houses have appreciated tremendously. So if the long-term average of homes going up in value is about 4%, in the last decade, they went up by 10%. And this is an average across Canada, of course, different. My brother lives in Quebec City, and I know it's slightly different than in Quebec City because there's not such demand for housing there maybe as it is for the GTA. But we are generally currently speaking about individuals in the Greater Toronto Area, Niagara, Hamilton, and we've seen that go up. So higher values of homes have also created a little bit of a cushion. And if we need to access a line of credit, at least we have that equity in the house to get through the tougher times that we're maybe going through. And then, of course, um, retail sales. So if you pull up to a mall about a year ago or 6 months ago, it would be tough to get a parking spot. And that means that people are out buying iPads, they're buying cell phones, and they're buying the regular goods and services, the consumables, meaning that they have jobs, they have the money to spend, and they're somewhat enjoying it that way. Speaking of housing prices, to focus on that a little bit more, on the left-hand side, you see the National Housing Price Index, so breaking it down by city, Victoria, Vancouver, Hamilton, Toronto, and the composite of Canada. uh, there has been definitely a uptick of about 100%. So houses doubled over the last 10 years. If you put that in context versus other countries in the G7 group, you're seeing that Canada has tremendously outperformed. You look at Italy or Spain or some of the European countries, their values actually went down. Meanwhile, Canada more than doubled. So that puts us in a very strong position as a country, and definitely healthier position than many other countries around the world. Now, we still have to deal with the tough situation, and speaking with some of the business owners in Burlington, you can see that everyone is facing their own struggle, whether it's a shortage of supplies because they're really busy and driving around to find them, or it's because we don't go to the office, we don't wear suits as we used to, perhaps, and therefore retail is affected or restaurants are affected. I wanted to have a closer look at each industry to share with everyone what the numbers are. So we're looking at general commerce, retail, restaurants, food delivery, and travel. These are selected industries to show you how they're going through this. And generally what you will see is that there was different stages of the onset of coronavirus being announced. And first case reopened, public health emergency declared, first reported US death. And then all of a sudden, the travel ban came to Europe. And that's really when it started. So if you're looking at consumer spending, it has been, throughout this time, it has been going somewhat steady. And all of a sudden, after the travel ban, everybody realized this is serious. We're not allowed to go anywhere. We're kind of confined to where we are. And so this is bigger, and pandemic was announced. And you're seeing that spending has decreased by up to 50%. And then you're seeing these jumps a little bit. But from there, the numbers started improving slightly as we're being told that the economy is going to reopen, and we should have a little bit more confidence maybe of going out and spending. Let's break it down by industry. So general commerce, you're looking at wholesale, pharmacy, grocery, big box, a tremendous spike of up to 100%. People racing to the stores to buy supplies to make sure that they can survive something that we've seen on the news, how China handled and how people were locked in their homes, and that created a lot of fear. But then you're also seeing that has really relaxed, and people think came back to normal because the worst did not happen from that point of view. Retail sales, there was a really wide spectrum. So from apparel, you're seeing a drop of up to 75% at the lowest point, and then slowly climbing. Pet supplies, office supplies, a tremendous spike as everybody started buying cameras to be able to communicate with employers and clients online. We were, you couldn't find certain items that you wanted to because the demand was so high, and then things started normalizing again. Looking at restaurants, there's a spectrum there. So between fast food and fine dining, and there are different categories in between, you're seeing that fast food did best out of them, and fine dining really was the toughest, because that's, if you think about it, it's hard to enjoy yourself in a nice restaurant with a little bit more expensive of a meal if you're thinking about getting a virus. So that business has been affected more, and now as we're going to see reopening of indoor dining, I think it will improve, because we're getting a little bit cabin fever and wanting to get out and enjoy life. Then there is food delivery. This just took off tremendously. So if you look at, I actually had to scale down this chart because 500% was not fitting in one window. So you're seeing a little bit of a logarithmic scale change. But 500% growth is tremendous. And this is where restaurants even shifted their models. So, you look at a restaurant, many businesses needed to shift models and how they will deliver their service or their goods and products. Delivery to homes is also happening with grocery stores. Meals and snacks, that kind of stayed, but we order a lot more now in than we used to. Amazon, we have two little boys at home, and they think that you can get anything on Amazon, including a pool. So, staying at home throughout the summer, not going to camps, we started having that conversation, and we talked about a pool, and they said, can we get that from Amazon? And, those packages, you're seeing them on everybody's doorstep. So that's where it gets interesting, and I'll address that in a second, but there is a shift. So every economic crisis creates an opportunity. So the people that are first able to innovate through that, they can create opportunities before other ones are willing to or able to adapt. That's where there will be a discrepancy of what happens within the same industry by different owners of a business. And those, I think you've addressed that in the past, where some businesses are really well positioned to continue with a transaction. So if they wanted to sell, the owner wanted to sell their business, initially you wanted to make sure that cash flow is still there and demand is still there, and then the buyer has the confidence of proceeding with that transaction. If you're in the travel industry, it would have been really tough to do anything there. So we're seeing airlines, cruise lines, hotels, car rentals. The biggest chain of hotels, Marriott, dropped 70% within a very short period of time. Flights being restricted to how many people can sit next to each other and so on. It became very tough. Cruise liners, they lost 90% of their value. I'm referring to tourism because we also live in an area where we have a lot of tourists. Niagara is a big tourist destination. And Toronto, as a result, the airport where everybody flies in, also affect the entire, all of them. So businesses that are in that industry will have it a little bit tougher. Taking more of a macro look and looking globally, you can see that Canada's GDP, gross domestic product, as a percentage, we don't rely as much as other countries on tourism. So it's about 8.7%, similar to the US, which is 9%. Have a look at Greece, where more than a quarter of their economic activity comes from tourism. Those countries, Mexico, will be, we know places where we go for the little islands in the Caribbean. They are going to suffer as an entire nation because they are a lot more closely related to tourism. So sometimes having that and knowing that, as a country, we're better positioned, and we do have relatively lower debt as a country versus some of the other ones here on the list, it can be a little bit easier for us to get through it. And this slide is entitled Hope on the Horizon. What we're seeing is actually a disconnect between what is happening with consumer sentiment and what we're seeing on the market. And in the previous part of this talk, we were talking how lower asset values on the market is an attractive offer for business owners that are transitioning from being owners, selling their business, coming into cash, and then buying investments as a result of them perhaps moving to retirement. And investment assets actually did drop, but then they also had a recovery. And that's something unexpected because the problem of COVID is not yet solved. But there was a lot of money sitting on the sidelines waiting to enter the market. And there was a lot of talk about that money that did not come from institutions. Institutions do still believe that there is risk in the market. However, individual investors may not. So, and that's your flow of money shows us who is actually putting the money in there. Tremendous rebound. Where are we going to go from here? So, if we have another second wave of COVID happening, towards fall, or as numbers we're seeing them starting to rise again, maybe people will start realizing that is still not a problem that we solved, and investment asset values will drop again. And if that's the case, I would, think this through, and entering into transitioning, selling your business, being able to buy into the market that is at a discount is an opportunity. If you look at it from a business point of view, is there emotions attached to it? Of course there is, because you may have already put some money aside already for retirement, and when you get a statement which tells you, my investments are down, that gives you an emotional reaction to that number that you're seeing. However, look at the greater picture. If you have majority of your money already invested and you're going to get very little, perhaps you are a little bit more, you have a little bit more justification to be worried. At the same time, markets always rebound, and we'll see in the next section how that actually works. I am looking for opportunities for the market to drop, and that window of opportunity that we saw here, the market being down about 30%, was a very, very small window of time. And if you did not have your ducks lined up in order, you were not able to even take advantage of that, which is very disappointing. Usually, a recession lasts for much longer. And that's the next part that we'll address a little bit more in detail. So these are the industries that have not done so well. Having looked at the ones that have or are doing tremendously well, if it wasn't for information technology, we wouldn't be able to have this talk today. A lot of business owners would not be able to communicate with clients. Zoom meetings wouldn't be happening. Deliveries of Amazon would not be happening to our house, because Amazon is not a producer, it's not a store, it's in the delivery side of their business. Microsoft, Apple, Netflix, Facebook, all those companies are benefiting from us staying at home, and they're helping us to connect with each other, to actually get through this time with a little bit more comfort, contact with other people. And so technology is something that we're seeing of course, it reacted at the beginning as the entire economy did. However, they quickly rebounded. And from the bottoms, some of them even doubled by now. So consumer discretionaries, communication services, healthcare. And then there's a number of industries that were kind of in the middle, and some of them that were on the lower end. So this is a spectrum of what's happening overall for everyone to get a better understanding. And that kind of brings us to the end of this section.
This is great, Martin. And what I like how you broke it down by industry. I mean, you're right. There are some opportunities out of this, and some people have really taken a hit at the same time. But I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on what's going to happen to the market when there is a vaccine. Like, are investors they got their finger on the button and they're just waiting to throw money in there? Or
It may not be as easy to answer that one, because as we learn more about the virus, we also discover that it could be something that changes. So a vaccine could be found, just like the flu vaccine does not protect everyone 100% from every single flu. And that's why the reason is why some people don't take it. It may be that scenario where it helps us to in maybe with one strain of the virus, but last time I heard there was 3 different strains that were happening on different continents and developing. So that will be interesting how it will play out. And I'm not an expert. Some of our clients who are in medicine, they will be probably better positioned to answer that. But it's interesting to the question, because we may be in a position where cases rise, market drops, vaccine isn't announced, it's dispersed, and then what do you do then? It's all speculation. In
sure.
the short term, any behavior, kind of a reactionary behavior, is nothing but speculation. We don't know. We hope that we're right, and we want to capitalize on that. You should never bet on speculation when you're transitioning from a business, because you're usually coming into a more serious amount of money that you want to be a little bit more diversified, a lot smarter about it, at least, let's just say. And there are bigger trends to look at than, companies announcing individual vaccine testing or potential successes. And some politicians are not great at waiting until that happens because they want to create a positive atmosphere if there's hope on the horizon.
Sure, no, that's very. I know I threw a bit of an arrow at you, and I realize there's no right answer, but
It's
I
a tough
really
one.
think it'll be an interesting time when there is an announcement that there is a vaccine out there. So, for those of you listening, obviously we're really thankful for Martin to come on and do this part two, but feel free to reach out to him. You see the information on the screen. You can reach him by phone, visit his website, or email. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Jim.